but
There's
yeah,
a space wars. A war among the stars, you could say.
like sci-fi Canterbury Tales.
There's this metal tree somewhere that the church members and other people have had visions of, just covered in barbs, where just millions and thousands of corpses are hanging. Well, I shouldn't say corpses, because they are writhing in a perpetual state of suspended semi-life. The pilgrims are Het Mastine the Templar. Oh man, Father Hoyt? I don't recall Father Hoyt's first name, but Hoyt, the Catholic priest from Catholic Planet. Leonard Hoyt. Leonard Hoyt. Okay. Yes. Well, yeah, there's a lot of sort of future. Oh, the names are weird.
I'm all about that.
I don't know if this is the way he likes to write, or if, well, I mean, it kind of seems like this is just one of those things where someone adds a weird type of colloquialism to a future dialect. You know what I mean? But everyone in this book so frequent, and it might be more in a formal military setting, but people so frequently refer to each other by the first initial of their first name and then their last name. So like Martin Salinas is referred to as M. Salinas all the time. And the John Keats character, I forget what his alias is, but yeah, he's always in government meetings and they're always calling him M whatever or H whatever. But there's a lot of that. Yeah, there's a lot of calling people by the first letter of their first name. So Hoyt is the first. Let's see if I can remember the order of the chat. There's 6 chapters. I mean, the priest's tale.
The man who cried God.
The man who cried God. I love that. Oh my god. So like, I don't even know if I got chapter titles in the audiobook. I love that. That's so...
That's a pretty neat name.
Oh my god, I can't wait to tell you what happens.
Oh, dude.
Alright, so 2 of the chapters are not truly about... 2 of the chapters have other narrators other than the pilgrims. So like 4 of the chapters are the stories of what happened to 4 of the pilgrims. And 2 of the pilgrims know someone and are telling someone else's story. So Leonard Hoyt's story is actually about a priest named Paul de Ray that Hoyt had met, and de Ray was going on an excursion. What do Catholics do? They don't go on pilgrimages. They go and tell people what to do. Missions. Yeah, okay. So he was going to go... There was this tribe, I don't know if they're described as a I'm going to keep saying, what's it called? What's it called? Like an uncontacted tribe, whatever. But there are humans living in the forest.
Okay.
And I think it's not known when they got there. It's not, well, although they know that, well, there was a
Is this the flying one? Yeah, it's the flying one. I'm sorry.
There was a colony ship that crashed in a certain area of Hyperion out in the wilderness. And they also know, and I feel like I guess why I'm not sure exactly how it comes to pass is because it feels like it's supposed to be a reveal I think maybe they don't even know about the colony ship at first. He might be just going to go on a mission to talk to these uncontacted peoples living out in the jungle. It does turn out that they are the remnants of a colony ship that crashed out there. They're called the Bokora. And it's really funny that I'm not too sure exactly why he's going out there, if it's for a mission or some other reason. Or Paul de Ray, it may even be that Father Hoyt wants to contact them because Paul de Ray has vanished. And Paul de Ray may have encountered them by accident. So Paul de Ray and his traveling companion, they travel through a forest of Tesla trees, which are trees that shoot electricity out. And there are times when they're more active and they're just zapping shit, and you can't travel through Tesla forest.
A freaking Tesla forest. I've
Yeah.
never heard of such a
And it's like the weather there, like how charged the trees are at the time is like weather. Like you don't go through the forest where when there's a big like output or whatever. And at the edge of the forest there is a crag and a great cleft in the ground, and that's where he encounters the Bakura, who are small of stature and wearing cloaks and wielding knives, and they immediately murder his one remaining traveling companion with their knives. And they overpower him, and his cloak like flaps open, and they see his crucifix on his chest, and they all back away. And they say, "You are of the cruciform." And they don't say much else.
I'm definitely spoiling this for myself. I definitely want to still read
Oh, are you
through it.
reading about it?
I'm reading a little bit about it. Like,
or,
holy shit! I'm not gonna
or should I
spoil.
not spoil it? This is full
Spoiler.
spoilers where I'm
Oh yeah.
going.
I mean, okay. Oh, I mean, yeah. But please keep going. Like, it's. I mean, again, eventually I'm gonna sit down and read this, but this book is super fascinating sounding. So I'm definitely down for that. Yeah. But yeah, dude, please keep going.
Yeah, so the Bakura, they might not even that the Bakura might be a colloquial term. I don't think they might not even refer to themselves as such. They refer to themselves as the 70 because there are 70 of them, and there are always 70 of them, and have always been 70 of them. And he so basically, they don't talk much, and they don't talk super intelligently really. So it's hard for him to get information out of them, and obviously he's kind of under threat, but also he has nowhere to go. He can't travel through the Tesla forest alone, and they're keeping him alive. And they obviously are violent. They've murdered other people, and they've murdered his friend. And so he's in a kind of a bad position. And they talk very brokenly, and they don't seem super intelligent. And they're also like a very youthful. They don't look like children, but they're of like a diminished youthful kind of physicality. And so when he figures out that they refer to themselves as the 70, that's when he starts figuring out that it doesn't seem like there's any elderly or any young. They all seem to be the same age. And at one point he kind of asks one of them, like, so if you are 70, like when are there new ones born, or like when do new members of the tribe come? He's asking questions like that, and they're saying things like, well, one comes when another leaves, and they're giving him vague answers like that. And every day they travel down the cleft to somewhere he's forbidden to go. And actually, I may have used the wrong terminology before, because it becomes very specific. He starts saying like he wants to go see what they're going to worship. And he keeps saying, like, I am of the cruciform. And they say, you are not of the cruciform. You follow the cruciform. You are not of the cruciform. And he does eventually become of the cruciform. But so you kind of know it's kind of one of those old chestnuts from there. He one day while they're away or something, he travels down into the cleft where they go to worship, and below the cleft he finds an enormous cavern, and in the center of the cavern is a crucifix, a man-made by I don't know what kind of paleontology tools he has to determine the age of this, but he determines that it's not a crucifix. There's not a Christ on it, but it is a jeweled cross. And it is encrusted with jewels. The jewels were placed there by men tens of thousands of years ago, by his estimate. This is an ancient temple to a cruciform, to a cross shape, and it is located on one of the labyrinthian worlds, which are known to be ancient worlds. So in his mind, he has discovered some evidence that if not Christ, the cruciform has been an influence forever, way beyond what humanity would consider forever, right? He has made the discovery of discoveries for the Catholic Church. This is beyond belief.
Wow.
And When he returns, the Bakura are aware that he has gone to their altar, and they are not too pleased with it. And I think they want to kill him anyway. The argue, he can't really even tell what they're talking about because they're talking about how he must. Their terminology is strange. I think they're talking about they don't talk about they're not saying we're gonna kill him. They're saying like he must become dead forever. Not even like that. They speak very vaguely anyway. But they're talking about how he is not of the cruciform. He cannot be of the cruciform. He cannot go down to their altar. And he has done it. And many of them want to kill him. But eventually they end up taking him back down. And this was so Dark Souls. Into the secret room behind the altar, further down another layer of the cleft into another cavern where he finds the true cruciform. Here, all right. So I mean, if you've been listening this long, you're fucking in it. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
The true cruciform is an organism that takes the shape of a cross. There's all these pink glowing things clinging to the walls of this cave, and the Bakura, who also I didn't even mention this. They have an extreme fear, revulsion, and it is forbidden. Nudity is forbidden among the Bakura, and he discovers the reason that is because each of them have a cruciform attached to their chest, and he receives one as well. And kind of what ended up happening to the 70 colonists is that they became infected with these cruciforms. And
oh my
gosh, if you are infected with one, when you die, it has absorbed your DNA enough that it will regenerate, and it regenerate a being kind of like you were, but not quite you.
Exactly.
And so it's happened to these. So there's been a time debt. So many generations of these creatures have lived and died to the point that they have devolved, and they kill anyone who is not of the cruciform.
Wow.
And once he has the cruciform, also, if one of these creatures, it's almost just this is very world building. But like at one point, one of them, I can't even remember how he has died so bad that his body is completely destroyed. But if they recover the cruciform and attach it to the body of one of the others, when that other eventually dies, it will regrow back as two bodies, and the two will return. So once Paul DeRay has the cruciform, it becomes incredibly painful for him to leave the area. And he notices that the cruciform not only responds to pain, but causes him pain whenever he tries to remove it or cut it out or anything. Like, it communicates through pain. Oh, and I didn't even mention, but when they put this was the one thing. This is the kind of weird one, because this one has very little to do with time travel, although it's kind of about time debt and how, like, a group of people kind of slips under the radar somehow for centuries, even though it's not really.
Right.
But he does encounter the Shrike. When they put the cruciform on him, for some reason, it has something to do with the Shrike. It almost seems like, I almost wish it didn't, because it almost seems like it doesn't at all. But this is the one story that is almost completely, and it's good that this is the first story, because not only is it really cool, but it's completely different than, really the rest of them have a lot more to do with time travel in the Shrike, which, which we'll get to. So the end of the story is that Paul DeRay, Lunar Hoyt comes to look for Paul DeRay. They had met before, and so now, and he knew about either the Bakura or he knew about where Paul DeRay was headed. So he goes to find the Bakura, and he does, and I think, and again, his traveling party is immediately murdered.
Wow.
But they notice that he is wearing a cruciform. He is of the cruciform, or he follows. Someone who is not of the cruciform but wears one follows the cruciform, I believe. So they realize that he follows the cruciform. So he's okay, and they take him to Paul DeRay. Paul DeRay eventually, realizing that the cruciform did not but it communicated through, it understood pain, probably didn't like it, and communicated back through pain. Paul DeRay eventually nailed himself to a Tesla tree to be continuously painfully killed and resurrected in the hopes of driving the parasite out and dying.
Wow.
And he has become so destroyed, his body is so destroyed, that the Bakura forcefully remove what is left of Paul's cruciform and apply it to Paul DeRay as well as a fresh one. So like what I said about how when no, not Paul DeRay, Hoyt. So when Hoyt dies, he is going to regrow himself and DeRay. And so Hoyt now is not on Hyperion. He's on a tree ship. It's not vague how he escaped because it was very clear that, I mean, it is vague. It was very clear that, like, it's very painful to leave the area where the Bakura are. You cannot travel through the Tesla trees if you have the cruciform parasite. It's extremely painful, but somehow, oh well, actually, yeah, he may have been rescued because one of the people that was killed in his traveling party was like maybe the wife of like a soldier who came back and nuked the settlement.
Yep.
And so Lenar Hoyt was rescued, but he's not doing too good. And especially being away from Hyperion is very painful to him. Did I just like leave the area of the fucking? Oh, there it is. So that's basically Father Hoyt's. That's the priest's tale. That's the man who cried God. And yeah, that one barely talks about the Shrike or about time, but the rest of them have a lot more to do with time being fucked. Yeah, the
Super duper good.
the aspect of it that I think spoke to me. I loved, and this is why when you told me the title, I loved it because I loved the idea that he thought he had discovered proof that like Christianity was older than Earth and like a part of the blueprint of the universe. And yeah, man, faith.
I feel there's a lot
And
of
that's not what it turned out to be.
I get like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade Nazi vibes from the priests sort of thing, where they're trying to find like the Holy Grail sort of thing. They're trying to
Right,
prove
yeah.
God's
Evidence
existence,
of yeah.
and then contain that power for themselves, sort of thing. And then it turns out that it's like a parasitic life form.
Probably, I mean, it seems like you're probably from your perspective, I imagine that your first death is your death because it seems like it regrows a being that is not quite you. You know?
Right.
It seems like whatever comes back is really something else.
Mm-hmm. Jeez, that's such a wild flipping story, especially like the. Hold on, let me see here. So just the reading from the Wikipedia here, it says in the end of the story, quote, the Bakura are destroyed with nuclear weapons, but not before Hoyt is infected with both Duray's cruciform and one of his own.
Yep.
That's terrible.
Yep. So Hoyt is because he's traveled away from there now, he's in constant pain. And he's constantly shooting some kind of hyper future drugs.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
And he's also very horrified that he is carrying these cruciforms now.
Um,
And his I as far as I believe as far as I'm not sure if he has any. I don't know if he has any ulterior motive. I believe he thinks that if he goes on the pilgrimage because of his great faith, he will be the one granted the wish, and his wish is to die. Because he's terrified to kill himself because he doesn't know what will come back.
oh man.
It's really, boy, that really is a good one to kick things off.
That's a great one to kick things off. So the next story is the part two,
The
the Soldier's
Soldier.
Tale. The War Lovers is
The War of Lovers. Okay.
the War Lovers is just
The War Lovers. Yes.
and
Is
then
his named Friedmont? Fedmont?
Fedmon.
Fedmont
Uh,
Kassan.
Kassad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kassad. Fedmont Kassad the soldier. Yeah, part 2 sets up the Shrike and time travel a little more.
Okay.
Uh,
But again,
which is important. Yeah.
okay.
Let's just go in order. But and I did kind of want to mention that people have been talking. The reason I read this is because like reviews have been popping up on YouTube, which probably has something to do with the fact that they are making a film based on this. But you know why I think people are talking about Hyperion?
Why?
Because the Dune movie got made. So people are looking at old spaceship novels. And we talked a little bit before when we were offline about old paperback stores in the
Oh, right.
90s, Walden books and sci-fi novel covers,
Oh,
and
yeah.
how the cover of this book is such a classic pulp sci-fi,
Totally.
like paperback books. Paperback fantasy and sci-fi in the 90s was something that existed, and I remember very little about, but I was definitely into it. Like I was saying, I was reading Star Trek novels.
Uh, so let's see. Colonel Fedman Kassad begins with a flashback to his days of training in the Force Military Academy on Mars.
Yeah, he's training in a simulation.
Interesting.
Um, it seems like they basically have holodecks.
All right.
Uh, it basically, I mean, it begins describing him. It begins describing, I believe, a scene because it describes many different wars during this story. But I think it's probably a very classic, like it might be. I feel like it might be like a Vietnam situation. I feel like he might be doing some kind of jungle combat.
Okay.
But it does sound like he's in a 20th century war, and before it reveals that he's in a simulation, and when it reveals that he's in a simulation is when he meets a woman he doesn't expect to meet, and he says something like, "Are you a part of the fucking simulation? You're not supposed to be here." And she answers him very vaguely, and then they have very graphic sex with each other. They have been so he is so aroused by the blood pumping, fury of combat and like 15 murders, and so is she, that they work it right out.
Right in the middle of the battlefield.
Oh my god, I can't remember what her name is. Yeah, like amongst corpses.
Um. Oh
It
goodness.
might not. You might, and if you look for her name, there's going to be spoilers as you try to figure out what I don't. Moneta. Her name is Moneta. So he meets Moneta, and he doesn't, and he thinks she's human, and he doesn't understand how, and she shouldn't have access to his simulation. And he keeps meeting her through various battlefields, and in these simulations that he's participating in. I'm not exactly sure on, yeah. Like I said, there's going to be some details I don't really remember, but he either ends up in an actual battle with the Ousters, maybe not with the Ousters, because I think there's a rebellion or something that happens. But he ends up being injured and he's on a hospital ship. And the hospital ship is maybe it is, this might be, I was telling you how the Ousters are very interested in Hyperion. So I believe the hospital ship is like passing past by Hyperion on the way back from the conflict that Fedman was involved in. And the hospital ship is attacked by Ousters and it goes to ground on Hyperion. And there's a lot of descriptions of the Ousters. And I almost found it very interesting that the author Dan Simmons, he makes a point to refer to them as men. He's always like, Fedmont crushed the man's skull, and Fedmont is like a superhero.
Yeah.
This guy's ridiculous. He is constantly crushing skulls and gouging out eyeballs.
Wow.
But they also refer to the Ousters. They refer to the like I think they refer to them being as like gangly, like all of their limbs are really long. They hold weapons and tools in all four of their hands because
What?
their feet are used as hands. Like the ousters
What?
have changed, and they all wear helmets. Their faces are never seen by a character or described. They're always in these suits. And so they attack, and like I said, at this point, I think not even until the second book do we really get a lot of the politics and why these people are interested in Hyperion. But they attack the hospital ship and ground it. So all of that violence is happening during the ship crashing. And the ship crashes. Kassad is able to recover miraculously. Like, really, this guy is a superhero. He's able to recover. He's able to gather weapons.
Right.
And he leaves he walks out of the wreckage and out onto the plane or whatever, and there are thousands of ousters. The ousters and their ships are actually referred to as the ouster swarm. They're one of those swarm type alien guys where they just have 1,000 tiny ships that are always everywhere. It's hard to even destroy any significant portion of their military because they just have a ton of tiny ships. So the ouster swarm has landed. He's in trouble. And I can't believe that I don't know if Moneta is in this scene. I feel like she should be, but I almost don't remember if she was there or not. It would be really important because it would be the first time that she was there, like in real life. He does meet her at least right. I think she's there during this. And honestly, after that last one, I wasn't, after that last story, I was a little bit not into hearing a superhero story all of a sudden. Because this story so far has been all just smashing heads and stabbing and fucking, like, it really comes out of the blue.
It reminds me a lot of Spawn.
Spawn?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of skull crushing and a lot of twisting of spines and so forth.
Al Simmons. Al Simmons was Spawn, and Dan Simmons wrote Hyperion.
Whoa.
What's the connection?
Only I thought that was
weird. So they're in trouble. So Moneta and Kassad are cornered. The enemy has them. Their ship is destroyed. The Shrike, at first he doesn't understand what is happening. At first, it just looks like they are being destroyed in a variety of ways. Some of them just coming apart, and also time. Also, some of them are going back together. Just things are happening to the enemy, and time does not seem to be working correctly. And he realizes that this creature, the Shrike, is moving through the enemy and just decimating them. And as he enters the battle, for some reason, he goes into this state where he's able to perceive the way the Shrike is moving backwards, and he's able to move with it, and he's like fighting alongside, and he doesn't understand why he's fighting alongside the Shrike, but it seems like perfect and natural, and they're all moving backwards and forwards through time, and there's this very it is written well. It's written well and interestingly, and it is hard to describe, obviously,
right?
Because a lot of this book, when it gets down to the mechanics, it's like time just fucks off. Basically, the other 5 stories all have some point that more or less the mechanics state time just fucks off. Time gets completely weird. So he's moving backwards and forwards through time. He's watching how the Shrike, is moving back, like killing these creatures by going backwards, and the Shrike is also teleporting away, and Fedmont receives a vision of the tree, the great metal tree somewhere beyond the time tombs that the Shrike is hanging these bodies on, and the bodies, once impaled, writhe and stay animated forever as they travel backwards through time.
Mhm.
And so also the structure of this, by the way, is so also an interesting. It's funny that I haven't mentioned this at all, but the structure of the book is that as they travel on their pilgrimage, they're telling each other these stories.
Mm.
So at this point, he's telling them about how he received the vision of the tree where the Shrike hangs the bodies, and how they're the bodies, and they're almost all ousters. So basically, he's a
Mhm.
premonition that the Shrike is going to destroy almost all of the ousters.
Wow.
But the other pilgrims ask him, "Did you see any of us on the tree?" And he says yes, and refuses to say anything else. So some of them are so, but they
Petrified.
also know that 6 of them are supposed to be killed. Uh,
Wow.
so he meets Moneta, and there she's real, and she says something very bizarre to him, which is, "Yes, we know each other from your past and my future." But the only time in the past that he has known her has been in these simulations that he didn't even know if she was real or not.
Right.
He's still having visions and time is still wobbly and they fuck again. And this time he maybe in a vision and maybe not. She physically begins to become the Shrike while they are encoiled.
Oh no.
He does not like
No,
this
thank
very
you.
much.
I would not like that either. It's like getting a
It's
pinky in the
not.
corner when you don't expect it.
It is not. It really, and I think he does not even really know if it was part of a vision
Shit.
or what exactly happened. But he has to get away. He gets away from her somehow, and he gets off. He gets rescued from the planet. She may vanish after that. You know, she's like that. She
Mhm.
comes and goes. Moneta does a lot of vanishing. We find out a lot more about her in the second book.
Really?
Um, Oh yeah, and yeah, so he doesn't know if he's not sure if she has been the Shrike the entire time. He's kind of believes, and I'm spoiling the second book. She's not exactly the Shrike, but
Mhm.
uh, but he doesn't know if she has always been the Shrike, and he's been
Mhm.
communing with this creature that has now caused him to go on this unbelievable massacre. This might be why the Ousters are interested in Hyperion. They might just want to come and kill everyone on the planet because of what happened.
Seems about
Um,
right.
so basically he pledges to return. He gets rescued and he decides he's going to return. He's going to find her. He's going to find out what's going on. The timelines are going to line up and the time tombs aren't going to be like they're going to open at some point. That's what they refer, but it's when the anti-entropic field or whatever is going to line up with our reality. But that is becoming close on Hyperion, and the Shrike is beginning to roam outside of its domain and just start to destroy settlements and become a very, very, very large problem. And so, Fedmont's motivation. I said that they all had, some motivation that they wanted to come back. He wants to find Moneta, and if she is the Shrike, he has brought with him a weapon that he believes will kill her. And that's the soldier's story.
Jeez Louise, dude. That's wild.
And
And
it's a real superhero banger. It really is.
that's basically a dude who had seen some crap and then realized like kind of the being played. But anyways, but I gotta take off. But
Yeah, let's
dude,
do it again.
yeah, absolutely. And again, thank y'all for watching. Thanks y'all for hanging out.
All right. Have a
All
good one.
right, yeah, you too. Thanks y'all for watching. Have a good one.